Okay, Hazy and T in the building. We're joined with Big Mike, the co-host, Prince Allen, all the way from Kansas City, Missouri. We got Eric Young from TNA Wrestling, Impact 2. If you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button.
This is Eric Young, and you're listening to I Only Touch Greatness podcast from the one and only true Grand Slam champion. AJ never wrestled women.
Looking for the most beers on tap, great steaks, great staff? Head over to the John B. Pub.
We got the best beers, steaks, chicken wings, nachos in town. Come see us at the John B. Pub.
The John B. Pub, the best bar in town. Come sign up for our football pool. Say Hayes sent you.
The number one sports podcast in Vancouver with Ryan Hayes and Big Mike.
Ryan Hayes and Big Mike. I Only Touch Greatness podcast.
I Only Touch Greatness podcast with Ryan Hayes and Big Mike.
We have TNA and Impact on the same day. There he is. There he is, Eric Young, the legend.
Hi, bud.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Ryan, by the way. I'm the one that's been chatting with you.
Ryan, how are you?
Oh, good, thanks. We're joined with Big Mike, my co-host, and our guest host all the way from Kansas City, Prince Allen.
It's an honor. Huge fans. Me and my brothers been huge fans of you since we got to see Impact.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
So, born in Ontario, what was life like growing up for you?
Pretty laid back. I grew up in a small town, a population of about 60 or 70 people. We don't have a traffic light, didn't have a store. Closest McDonald's was 45 minutes away. Really, really humble beginning. I would put my childhood against anybody's though. I was driving a car when I was 8 to go get milk and playing hockey of some kind every day. And just an unbelievable childhood for sure.
That led to our next question, actually, is what sports did you play growing up?
I played them all, actually. When I was real young, baseball was definitely my thing. Played soccer all through grade school, all the way through high school. And then a couple of years after, I played travel indoor. Played hockey from the 6th or 7th grade all the way through high school. And then was introduced to rugby when I was in high school, and then fell in love with rugby and was the MVP 3 of the 4 years. My coach in high school was convinced that I could play professionally if I wanted to, but I was too in love with professional wrestling to do that. So I didn't go to school, or he said he could probably help me get a scholarship at the University of Hamilton, where he attended. But I didn't love rugby like I love pro wrestling. So
when did you want to make wrestling your career?
What was that?
When did you want to or know that you wanted to make wrestling your career?
I've loved it since I was like 4 or 5. Was obsessed with it. Where I grew up, it was hard because we didn't have access to it. The town I grew up still doesn't have cable television. So I had an antenna in my yard, and we had like 5 or 6 channels. I know it sounds like I'm saying like, I walked to school backwards, but that's the reality. Like I didn't have access to it. My number one access was VHS tapes. I'd have to wait for those to come out, and not all the stores carried them, and they didn't carry all of them. Coliseum home video was a huge part of my childhood. I don't know if any of you guys are old enough to even know what that is.
Hey, I'm 38. You're only a couple of years older than me.
Okay, then you probably know what Coliseum home video is. But yeah, it's the access to wrestling was not great. And then in I guess it was early 96, me and 2 of my best friends split on a small satellite. At the time, they were $1,000. I mean, you can get them for free now, but back then they were very expensive. We saved up our money and went 3 ways on satellite so we could watch Monday Night Raw and Nitro and, pay for pay-per-views and stuff like that. So there was just no access before that. But I don't think it was probably till high school. School was not my thing. I wasn't a stupid, person. I didn't get terrible grades, but I never did homework ever a day in my life. I never studied for a test ever. I still managed to graduate on time and pass and do well in the classes that I liked, but was never a fan of being told what to do. So school was just never really my thing. And
sounds like me.
Partway through high school, I kind of decided that I was going to try wrestling. And if it didn't work, I could go to school with a broken neck when I was 30, so that's kind of what I decided. So 2 weeks after high school, I went straight into wrestling school.
And you live in Nashville nowadays, correct?
Yeah.
Do you know
Franklin, Tennessee, technically, but it would be Nashville to you. Yeah.
But do you know many of the Predators players because you're a big hockey guy?
Yeah. I'm friends with quite a few of the players. A lot of the people that work there. I do a bunch of stuff as a quote unquote celebrity, I guess. I mean, if you're not a wrestling fan, nobody knows who I am. But I do their charity golf tournament every year, their charity bowling tournament. Mike Fisher had me come do his charity clay pigeon shoot this year. So very involved in the community here, very involved with the Preds team, and go to a ton of games. If they make it to the playoffs, which they will, I will be there for every single game. So.
And we're big Predators fans out here too, because we're basically 15 minutes from Ryan Johansson, where he grew up. I actually coached him in lacrosse, and then Dante Fabro lives about 5 minutes from us. So yeah,
there was Kyle Turris as well, the good Coquitlam kid, just like us. Made your debut in wrestling in 1998. Which Canadian promotion were you working with back when you got that call?
My very first show was actually in Michigan. So it was a joint show with Dan Severin and his school. It was at I believe it was called the Bobo Brazil Arena in Benton Harbor, Michigan. I don't know if it's still there, but it's a long time ago, 1998. Yeah. It's a long, long time ago. We went over and Dan Severin was co-promoting it. It was an interesting show because it would alternate. It started with a pro wrestling match. Me and my friend I trained with, we were the first match through the curtain. It was quite the experience. And then they would do a tough man competition. Guys would come out of the crowd and put on boxing gloves and fight each other. So it was an interesting debut into the world of pro wrestling and how wild it can be. There was probably 1,000 people there. So it was a very good turnout and the crowd was awesome. And it was, once you do it in front of people, it was like this drug, and I couldn't get enough of it.
Mike? What Canadian wrestler would you say inspired you the most?
I'm inspired by all wrestlers. You didn't have to be Canadian for me. I loved growing up in Canada. I'm proud to be a Canadian. I have a tattoo of a Canadian flag on my arm. But I didn't have any choice. If I had a choice, I would have been born in the United States because it would have made my life a lot easier. As a lot of people being, making it to this level as a Canadian there's another level of difficulty just because financially it costs a company more to hire you than it does an American because of the visa stuff and all that kind of stuff. So, a lot of people don't understand how difficult it is for Canadians. The system doesn't make any sense. You could be from anywhere else in the world and apply to come and live in the United States unless you're Canadian. There's no path to living in the United States if you're a Canadian citizen, unless you marry somebody or have a visa for long enough and apply for citizenship. So it's ultra difficult. I'm not good with numbers and I hate math, but I think the percentage chance of me sitting here talking to you guys about my 23 plus year career, the chance of that happening was probably less than 5%. I grew up in a tiny town, short, chubby Canadian kid, good athlete, but I wasn't a professional athlete. I didn't have any lineage in the business, and I was Canadian. So it's the percentage chance of me making it to where I am today was almost non-existent. And I don't think I realized that when I started, but looking back on it now, it's pretty impressive.
Who helped you train when you were starting out?
First?
Hang on, Prince, you can go next.
Okay.
Who helped you train when you were getting started? Who was your first trainer? Like big push?
Yep. I went to a spin-off of the Hart Brothers schools in Cambridge, Ontario. Found out, very quickly that it had nothing to do with the Hart Brothers. It was a bit of a scam. The Hart Brothers, Smith Hart, the oldest Hart brother, sold the rights of his name to this con man, and he opened a Hart Brothers School of Wrestling in Cambridge. I ended up getting very good training. Waldo Von Erich, a WWF legend, was there. I mean, he was too old to really get in the ring, but psychology and just believability and characterization, stuff like that is, I learned a ton from him. I believe he still holds the record, him and Bruno Sammartino, for the longest match in Madison Square Garden history. Yep. I think it was 96 minutes. He was there, and Carl Leduc, who is son of Joe Leduc and nephew of Paul Leduc, Canadian Lumberjacks. He lived at the Hart House for 5 or 6 years, was trained by them. Then he moved to Cambridge to be the head trainer there. And I received training from him. A bit of a wild man, but he knew his stuff, and I ended up receiving very good training.
And over the years, Chris Canyon as well.
Yeah. They shot the Jesse Ventura movie up in Canada, and he was there for, I felt like almost a calendar year. And he came to a few shows, and I was, I guess, a standout on one of the shows, and he asked me to play a small part in the movie. And at that point, up until I started wrestling for Impact, that was the most money I'd ever made in wrestling. And it was like 4 months into my career. It was being on set of a movie all day. Made a pile of money doing that, which I was very thankful for. But the coolest part was hanging out with him and hanging out with Raven and meeting all these guys that, I had watched on TV and picking their brains and learning about the business. And it was a very cool experience.
Hey, Prince, shoot yours.
Yeah. What was the first wrestler that first Hall of Famer that you was like, wow, I got to finally meet him? What was the first person that wowed you?
It's a long list, man. It's, I don't take pictures of these guys. I treat them like I treat anybody. And, anybody else, I think that's why I become pretty friendly with them pretty quick.
Right.
Becoming friends with Sting was kind of surreal. It was a guy that I adored growing up. Yeah. Was definitely my top 5 favorites when I was a kid. And I had his first match coming into TNA, the first time he had been in a ring in 10 years. I was the first guy to wrestle him. He painted my face, and I wore his gear from Clash of the Champions '88. I wanted to steal it, but I didn't. It's that was a big deal. I did some articles for ESPN when I was with the WWE and NXT, and I wrote a thing about Shawn Michaels. And to me, he's the best of all time. I don't think anyone will touch him. Bell to bell, I don't think it's arguable at all. I think he's the best to ever do it in ring. And I had never met him, and I had a tryout match. It was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was booked to be in the dark match before the show went on. This is when Raw was, just doing crazy numbers. I think there was 20,000 people in Grand Rapids for Monday Night Raw that night. And they announced me from Grand Rapids, Michigan, the local boy kind of thing, and wrestled a guy. I can't remember his name, but he wasn't very good. And I remember some of the other local guys kind of smartening me up, saying he's not very good. But I wasn't going to let that deter me. And I ended up sitting right beside Shawn Michaels in the dressing room just by happenstance. And he came in. I'm like, whose bag is this? And then he came in and sat down beside me, and I almost had a heart attack. There's a whole bunch of other details to it. It's in the article on ESPN somewhere, I'm sure. But that was one of the most surreal moments. And he was opening Raw that night. So when I came through the curtain, he's standing there in the gorilla position. And, you know, as a young guy and, you know, not working there, kind of thanking everybody and shaking everyone's hand, and I shook his hand, and he kind of pulled me back in, and he said, man, that's one of the best dark matches I've ever seen in my time working here. And it took everything in my power to not start crying right there. I'm not a religious person, but I liken it to, like, if you are a religious person, you know, God coming down and saying, hey, man, you're doing a great job. And literally from that point on, I never doubted myself again. To me, the best wrestler in the world said it was one of the best dark matches he had ever seen. And I knew at that point I was going to make a living doing this one way or the other.
Mike, shoot the 2004 question.
Yeah, 2004 debut in the TNA as a member of Team Canada. What are the thoughts on that?
A huge milestone for me. When I started in wrestling, my only goal I ever set for myself was that I would sign a contract so I could tell people this was my job. And I never told anyone that before that moment, because it wasn't my job. I had a regular job, and, you know, I made brass horse harnesses in a brass foundry and did sand casting and stuff like that. So it was a hobby. I mean, I was losing money every week because of this hobby I had in dreams of being a professional wrestler. So the money was not good, and the duration was not good, and the contract was piss poor for sure. I didn't read it. I didn't know that it was bad, but I didn't read it. They just gave it to me. I signed it, and I went right back to work. But that was the biggest milestone and the only goal I ever set for myself, and that I accomplished that in 2004. And to me, and I've said this in other interviews, and it's the truth, is everything since then has just been gravy, to be honest. It's just
icing
been
on the top.
Yeah, it's lots of icing, but it's just icing on top for sure.
Yeah, and what was it, or what were those early TNA days like, working with so many future superstars, your AJ Styles, your Samoa Joes, I mean, Robert
Bobby Roode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, being there as a person that had watched it, you know, my whole life, and I mean, literally, like, it consumed my life, every second of my life. I mean, I watched it all day. I read about it. I would fall asleep watching it. I would wake up and eat breakfast watching it. I mean, I was completely obsessed, and I knew that there was something special going on there, and understanding that in no way, shape, or form were we ever competing with the WWE. In no way, shape, or form were we, you know, some, you know, worldwide, you know, millions of viewership. But I knew in the wrestling world was taking notice of what was happening. And you're surrounded by all this amazing talent that people didn't even know. And you knew that at one point, everyone in the world was going to know those guys and possibly know me. So it was a very special time. And, you know, in this kind of inner competition of everyone trying to have the best match every night, that was often usually AJ, but, you know, we still tried. Yeah. It was a very cool place to work. And, you know, they gave me my first opportunity. I will, you know, never talk badly about anybody that worked there at that point.
And I got to say this, Lockdown 2009, you versus Danny Bonaduce. Would you ever do another one with him ever again? And how was that working with Danny Bonaduce?
Yeah, it was definitely surreal. It was like I was kind of in between things. So I was like kind of the only guy left that could do it. And they asked me, and I said, yeah, it would be cool. You know, this guy's a television star. His reality show at the time was doing crazy numbers. He was on a drive time radio show in Philadelphia that was crushing everything in the market. And that was the reason that Impact or TNA at the time had brought him on, because it was, you know, millions of dollars worth of publicity in the city where we were having the pay-per-view, having him talk about it every day. So it's a really funny story, actually. He's a really interesting guy, way smarter than everyone wants to believe. You know, everyone thinks he's nuts. That is and was completely by design. You know, he knew that was who he was and who people thought he was. So he leaned into it and he ran with it. And it's how he became relevant, you know, way later in his career through his reality show and through his radio show. Was very respectful, hard worker, was in great shape. But I mean, I basically beat the shit out of a senior citizen on pay-per-view. You know, he was 62 at the time. And he told me just do whatever and hit me as hard as you want. And so I did, because I knew that he wasn't ready to be on pay-per-view. You know, I mean, we'd done a little bit of training and kind of walked through what he was going to do, but it wasn't going to be good unless I mauled him. And that's basically what happened. Going to the radio station, we had a physical confrontation on air. It's just radio, but there was a recording of it. And the only people that knew it was going to happen was me, Jeremy Borash, and him. And there's, 5 or 6 other people in the room. And I'm like, I'm going to hit this guy. And then I'm going to have to fight these other people that I don't even know. So it was exciting, man. It was, I wasn't going to say no to it. And I mean, I'm not afraid of anybody, that's for sure. And, we got into a confrontation that he kind of started, and I got up and we got in each other's faces, and he said something. I don't remember what it was, but it was kind of something that triggered me, and I slapped him and I knocked him unconscious. And I kind of jumped back really quick, waiting for these other people to come forward and, to kind of stand up for the guy, their meal ticket, and nobody moved. So it was good for me. I didn't have to get into another fight, and he knew that it was coming. I don't think he knew it was coming that hard, but he's not a very big guy. Knocked him off his feet, knocked him unconscious on his own radio show. So feather in the cap, and it was a really cool experience for sure.
If you could sit down for dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, geez. I mean, alive for sure, it would be Wayne Gretzky, the greatest player to ever play in the NHL. Someone that is dead. Geez. Chris Cornell would be high on my list. I'm really into music. And I mean, for me, he has the best rock and roll voice of all time. A guy that I idolized and loved, and I've owned every piece of music probably he's ever recorded at one point or another in my life. So that would, off the top of my head, that would be those two guys.
What was the first CD you ever bought?
First CD? Oh, geez.
I go back to Salt and Pepper.
I'm going to say it was, this is a guess because it's a long time ago, but I would say it was probably the Presidents of the United States, their first album,
Peaches.
or the Weezer Blue album. One of those two.
Weezer's nice. I love Weezer.
Yeah, and the Presidents, they had the Peaches song back in the day.
Yeah. The album's unreal. I have a huge vinyl collection, and I have almost everything that they have on vinyl. I have it on vinyl now.
So I'm a huge Bengals fan. What was it like feuding with Pac-Man? Yeah. What was it like feuding with Pac-Man? Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. He was playing here at the time, and for the Tennessee Titans, probably a top 10, top 15 cornerback in the league. I think at the time was leading the league in interceptions. Freak athlete. I mean, he had his troubles for sure, but I always take people how they treated me. He always treated me very well. Respected what I said. Basically, I trained him. I mean, Jeff and Impact kind of paid me a daily rate to go over to his house every day, and he had a ring set up in his yard, and I trained him. And he never ever wrestled, and because the NFL stepped in and said you're not allowed to do that because it would void your contract. You can appear on the shows, but you can't do any physicality. So he ended up not wrestling, and Truth won the tag belts by himself, basically. Yeah. But yeah, Pac-Man was always good to me. Never a dull moment having him around. He had a bunch of demons, that's for sure. But I think he sorted those out later in life, and was always good to me. And I wish he could have wrestled because he was a freak. Like, I mean, I trained guys. I don't know if there was anybody that was more of a natural than him. You could show him something, and he didn't understand wrestling. He didn't watch it. He didn't know anything about it, but you could show him something and he could do it like first try without even thinking about it. He was an absolute freak athlete.
Do you remember?
Yeah, he just opened up a facility, gym facility somewhere. So we're hoping to get him on as well next week.
Cool. Tell him I said hello, man.
Yeah, will do.
Do you remember the mock funeral with Team 3D, and also your days with the Eric Young signs? Don't fire Eric. I used to love those signs.
Yeah. A very special part of my career. I'd been begging them like to give me a character. I've always felt and still feel to this day that's where my strength lies. Building a character and making you believe that that's the person that I am. I don't know if I would have selected the character that is afraid of everything. Didn't do a whole lot for my wrestling career, but I did get on TV. I believe at that time I was one of the most over baby faces in the whole roster, with no build up, with no building, with no nothing. You know, I was going to show up and kind of a chess piece that could move all over the place, and really enjoyed it. You know, because of that, got my own television show out of it. And very fond memories of that stuff. You know, they just kind of let me run with it, and whatever crazy thing I came up with to do, that they would let me do it. So, as a creative person, as a person in wrestling, like that's the ultimate. You know, you're trusted, and they don't write things for you. They just say you're just going to come out and do something, and you tell us what that's going to be. And that's a very special feeling. And that was the first time. You know, my gimmick before then was I was from Canada. Yeah. I didn't talk. I didn't do anything. I had a ton of good matches and loved being in Team Canada, you know, breaking into the business with 4 or 5 of my best friends and being around each other and guys that I respect, and some of the best in-ring talent ever, you know, it came out of that group. And, but that was the first time I was able to really sink my wrestling brain into convincing people that I was that character. You know, I was scared of everything and scared of everybody. And I barely locked up with people for almost 6 years. So it was a very interesting time.
One of my favorite finishing moves is always the Canadian Destroyer. So when you see that be put on, no one's ever really used it since P.D. Williams. Didn't you use it a little bit too?
No, I've never used it. I've taken it a couple times. It's a bit of a roller coaster ride, but I mean, in the end, it's just a pile driver, but you're kind of flipping. It's crazy innovative, was at the time. I mean, It was probably everyone's favorite finishing move at that point. And PD came up with it on his own. And, you know, like you see it used in the WWE, you see it used Ring of Honor, you see it used at AEW. It's used everywhere. He invented it. He was the first. And I was there for it. It's the first time he did it. I was like, man, I don't know. And he did it. And I was like, man, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Now it's like, I don't know what's next. We're going to have to start pulling guns out and shooting each other. But
it was very innovative time there. Even the Octagon ring. You had the Octagon ring there, which was used to flick the channels. I think we were telling Bischoff was telling us when we were flicking the channels, and that had it where you would flick the channels and you would see that, holy shit, this wrestling has got the Octagon ring. And that would make you want to stop there and watch it more. And it was catching your attention because you guys were doing stuff so different than everything else.
Yeah, it was just a way to set us apart, you know, and to a casual fan, there's the WWE and then there's everything else. And we weren't everything else. We were TNA, and the deal with Spike TV was going very well, and we were gaining momentum, and our numbers were doing very well. And it was just a way for like people that are casually flipping the channels to see it and know that it's wrestling and know that it's not the WWE at the same time. So that was an easy way for them to set themselves apart. And I think Bischoff, me and him are obviously very good friends now. I don't think we got along very well at the start, but it was his idea to go back to the 4 sides. So I don't know. I don't know why he did that. I wouldn't have done it. I would have left the 6-sided. But I mean, it was all the same for me. I wasn't really one for much for jumping off the ropes too much. So,
Prince, shoot one.
I was thinking about the cage match between you, Bobby Lashley, and Austin Aries. How was that? And also, how was it winning your first title? I knew that means so much to you. How was it winning that world championship from Impact?
It's like I said, like the only goal I ever had in wrestling was to sign a contract. So everything I've done from that point is gravy. Anybody that says that they don't want to win the world title, if they're in this industry and in this business, they're either lying to you or they're in it for the wrong reason. So it's always something I wanted. I believe that I could be. I believe that I was versatile enough and believable enough that I could. Did I think it was in my future? No, I didn't. But at that point, I had such momentum as a babyface. such momentum as a character and as a person on the show. It's like I almost kind of didn't give them an option. They kind of had to. So it's something I'll never forget. Having come into the back and all my peers are standing there. Everybody that basically works for the company is there to greet me and congratulate me, and a very emotional time for me, a milestone in my career, and then defending it in that three-way with Bobby and Austin was, I feel like that's kind of really put me on the map. I think a lot of people, and I mean, everyone's gonna have their opinions. Oh, it's, you're copying Daniel Bryan, and because he had won the title at the same time, and that very may be, I'm not in the writing meetings. I don't write the show or decide who wins and loses or any of that. So none of that had anything to do with
I think
me.
that was before y'all. Y'all did that before they did after. I thought they was copying y'all because some of the stuff on them shows back in them times was like that.
Yeah, and there's lots of back and forth, and it's, they were copying us and we were copying them, and that's the way wrestling goes. And what the storyline that was popular at the time, and me and him kind of peaked at the same time, and we both had beards, and we're both kind of smaller guys and whatever, underdogs, if you will. So the comparisons are fine. If you want to compare me to him, I mean, you've seen pictures of his wife. I mean, he's one of the coolest guys of all time. He's probably one of the best in-ring performers of the last 10 or 15 years. You want to compare me to him, then that's fine. I'll take that every day. He's awesome.
And he's definitely on his way to being a Hall of Famer as well. That's for sure.
He was like the first one to beat Drew and Bobby Lashley.
I never ever beat Drew. We did work a couple times, but I was one of the first to beat Bobby. And awesome guy, super talented, willing to do whatever. But yeah, that three-way cage match in Dallas it kind of put me on the map. I felt like, we really went into that wanting to put on something special. And I think together, the three of us did it that night. And it was a big kind of moment for me, a momentum moment for me moving forward.
So why were you leaving TNA in 2016?
Well, I couldn't hear the question. Sorry.
What were your thoughts and why were you leaving TNA in 2016?
The company itself was definitely spiraling down. It was shrinking and getting smaller and smaller. I was making very good money. I was figured in as one of the top heels on the show. I was on every show. I was on every tour. I was on every pay-per-view. But for me, it was just the timing was right. It was, the writing was on the wall that the company was shrinking. I had done everything and beyond what I had set out to accomplish there, and wanted a different challenge, and thought that if I became a free agent, that the WWE would be interested in hiring me, not knowing if they would be or not, but I believe that they would be. So I kind of bet on myself and took a risk and bit of a pay cut, and went over to NXT and had a blast, man. My NXT run is probably 2 or 3 of my favorite years ever in wrestling.
Great, shoot one.
All right. AEW, Impact, New Japan. Which one right now you feel like that you want to have right now, a wrestling match that that you can take?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Impact is my home, and since being here, a little under a year ago, and I've said this before, it's one of the only wrestling companies that's growing, to be honest. It's definitely the small fish in the big pond, and our numbers are not comparable to even AEW. But it was almost non-existent, a year and a half ago. And the deal with Anthem and with Access is going great. The highest rated show on their network every week. They signed deals with Pluto, which is a huge international platform. We're back on TV in the UK. We're seen I think in close to 30 or 40 countries now. Russia, South America, kind of all over the place. The business of Impact Wrestling is growing, and it's cool to be a part of that and an important part of that. But I'll wrestle someone in a shed. I don't care, man. It's definitely looking forward to the world opening up. hopefully doing some tours of Japan. I've only been over there once. So going over there again is something that I'm really looking forward to doing. The forbidden door, as they say, is open, and it's cool to be part of that. I know I'm not directly part of it in any storyline right now, but the fact that the opportunity exists is a really cool thing. And I believe that they had some plans for me before I tore my ACL. So I'm out 6 to 9 months. I don't advise anyone do this. It's awful.
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about that here.
Yeah, it sucks. I'm way ahead of schedule. I had a full leg brace, and they said you can't take it off to shower, to sleep. You have to leave it on all times, 24 hours a day for 9 to 12 weeks. And I had my follow-up with a doctor 2 weeks after the surgery, and he said, yeah, you don't need it anymore. You're fine. So I got the brace off in 2 weeks. So I'm, 8 to 10 weeks ahead of schedule already. So I've always been a quick healer, and hopefully it will only be 6 months, possibly less.
And we obviously just seen you out there on the crutches when you introduced Big Kaz or what?
Morrissey. Yeah. How was that? How was that feeling?
Yeah, it's cool, man. He's a guy that I've been friends with for a long time. He was in NXT when I first got there. Me and him played some fantasy football leagues together. Really good dude. Obviously had his problems, and he's openly admitted that and his struggles, and he's righted the ship. And you got to commend a person like that. Nobody really knows what someone's dealing with, and he's a perfect example of that. Of this guy's almost 7 feet tall. He's 300 pounds. He's jacked. He's good looking. He's young. He's talented. He's got everything going for him, but he still struggled with fame or notoriety or whatever it was. And he had troubles dealing with it. And he got some help, and I'm glad he did. And I'm glad he's still here, and I'm glad he's in Impact. And he's a cool addition to the roster for sure.
Yeah. Mike, shoot that one.
Yeah. What's your favorite piece of sports memorabilia?
I'm not really a collector of stuff. I don't. I've got a bunch of bench clear jerseys that are tank tops. So right now, when the playoffs are in the summer, I can still rep my favorite teams. That's a cool thing. If you like cool tank tops, or bench clears has some really cool stuff.
The bench clear ones. I got one of those in a Canuck one. So.
Yeah, they're really cool. It's the only company that makes like the NHL style tank tops that has a deal with the NHL, so they can use the real logos. So I just bought a Kirill Kaprizov jersey, so that's maybe my coolest one.
Okay.
I like that.
He's gonna win Rookie of the Year for sure.
I think so too.
Yeah, and Mike, shoot that other one that you were asking.
Which one? Oh yeah. How was your experience with Darren McCarty? And are you a CBD supporter?
I don't take CBD. I support it. If it makes you feel good and you want to take it, then take it. And I think that there's a ton of data and a ton of information out there to support what people are saying about it. I haven't looked at it closely. I don't take it. If someone gave it to me, I would take it. I'll live forever. I'm not afraid of any of that stuff. But yeah, he's a cool guy. That's a super cool podcast that they have, and being on there with him was a cool, kind of a cool deal for me. And Lars from Rancid, huge punk music fan. That's all I really listened to in high school. Rancid, I think, is would probably be in my top 5 punk bands of all time. Out Come the Wolves, I think, is one of the best punk albums ever written. And he's a fan of mine, and that was surreal. Just getting a chance to talk to him and finding out that he's loved wrestling forever. If high school me knew that, Rancid would for sure have been my favorite band for sure.
Yeah, because we had Darren McCarthy on, and it was like a week before because he brought it up. Oh, we got Eric Young coming up next week, and I'm like, oh, geez, that's great. We can't wait. I want Eric Young too, and that's what I tried so hard for the last 6 months trying to get you, and we finally got you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then obviously we spent some time in NXT, and a couple appearances on the big card up at SmackDown and Raw.
And you were NXT championships.
Yeah, NXT tag champs. But COVID-19 budget cuts, they said, for layoffs. How did you find out about it? Because
they called me. They called me and said that you don't work here anymore, just like everybody else. I understand it. I mean, there was no hard feelings. I wasn't doing anything. They were paying me a pile of money to sit at home, basically. So when I heard rumblings that there was going to be releases, I knew without a shadow of a doubt I was going to be on that list. Vince just decided at one point that he didn't like me. No idea why. Has never seen me do anything, so I don't know how he could form a conclusion. But yeah, it's sad. It's sad. It's they're telling you we're trying to save money and budget cuts, and I mean, you're publicly traded. You mean you could just tell us the truth? They come out and show the biggest earnings ever in the history of the company that quarter. So I mean, you can't. You're publicly traded. I mean, the information is there. So, I mean, for me, it didn't bother me. I knew it was coming, not a big deal, but I think it pissed a lot of fans off. I mean, you're telling the world you're firing these 250 people because you're trying to save money. And then 4 weeks later, you're putting up a report that you've earned the most money ever in the history of the company. So that's problematic as a business person, as an employer, as a human being. I mean, it's just dishonest and shitty ultimately. But that's the nature of the business, man. It is not forever. And the only thing for sure in life has changed, and things changed, and I'm happy where I'm at. And I'm sad that it ended that way. I am sad that I never was given an opportunity on the main roster. Obviously was given an opportunity in NXT, tag team champ, match of the year, a list of accolades, a massive part of that show and a massive part of NXT's success over those 3 years. So I know that I could get it done in that system. It's just a victim of circumstance, like a ton of other people that just went through it again.
Yeah, they did.
I wrote that thing about having my torn ACL and telling them, and if they hear this or see this, that there's a whole big, beautiful world out there. That's not the only game in town. So it's just the nature of the beast. This has been going on forever and will continue to go on. I'm not the first person he missed on. I will not be the last.
That's true. Yeah, because I was so mad because I think that Sanity and Bray Wyatt would have been a good feud with the Wyatt family and stuff like that. Because at that time, they were still going. Like, I could see y'all intruding. And just the way they just threw out Sanity, like out of nowhere, and just kept Nikki was just shocking to me. Because as a fan, we want to see people the likes of you keep doing what y'all's doing, because we seen the shows, and seeing that makes us no want to watch WWE. We watch the places that's all about good wrestling.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. It's they'll just go on making billions of dollars. They're not worried about me or anybody that they fired. That's the nature of the beast, man. It's my interactions with Vince were always respectful. He listened to my ideas, listened to me talk, and was always kind to me in person. And they took very, very good care of me. I do not regret going there. I do not regret any of it. I mean, to be honest, I made a ton of friends there and got to experience that and technically live my dream of working there. I mean, I made a very good living for 6 years from the WWE. So I don't regret it at all, but happy to be where I'm at now.
One of my favorite wrestlers of all time, easily top 3. You worked a lot with. Can you tell us a little about Kevin Nash?
Yeah, I mean, the guy that I loved when I was a kid, loved Diesel.
Yeah.
I mean, him and Sean were friends, and that was probably something that drew me to him. But he was just cool, and his delivery on the mic was always cool. And fast forward, 10, 12 years later, I'm tagging with him and traveling with him, and he went to bat for me and liked me, and we're still friends to this day and talk quite often. So very surreal, man. A guy that I learned a ton from into the ring, 10 times that outside of the ring of how to conduct myself as a business person, as a professional. Just an awesome guy, and a guy that, I mean, probably I wouldn't have had my success later on in Impact if it wasn't for him going to bat for me over several different times.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was technically in the NWO for like 3 or 4 weeks with the band.
So. Yeah, I'm a huge NWO guy. Like people don't forget what NWO meant to my growing up era. Like we watched it every day. That 3-hour Nitro. Yeah. Mike or Prince, got one?
Yeah, Wrestling by Design. How is it with Rhino Gore, which me and my brother's in the background. Me and him actually got to see him live with a Gore, and talking to you right now with Wrestling by Design. Tell us a little bit about the faction.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to be part of. Obviously, I have a lot of say in what goes on and who comes in and how the promos are shot, and I'm very involved in all of it. The music, the look, the graphics, all of it. So it's a really rewarding process. Rhino, I think, added real legitimacy to it. Like Joe was a huge star in Japan, basically an unknown here. But was a big star there. So, we have a long road of establishing him and showing the world what he can do. Cody was, for lack of a better term, another version of me. Was, a comedy guy, kind of spinning his wheels, middle of the card, never not taken serious. A guy I've known for 20 years and is crazy talented, is so smart and so good in and out of the ring. I thought that this would be a good opportunity for him to show the world what he can really do, and saw a lot of myself in him. And I was in that position where it's like, I know how good I am, but I'm never really given the full chance to show because of the role I play on TV. And he accepted that role and he ran with that role and was very good at it. But this is showing him another side. And then Rhino, I kind of had this conversation with somebody the other day. He's kind of like, this era's Hacksaw Jim Duggan. He's been over for 25 years. It's crazy. Everywhere you go, he gets a reaction. And people remember him at varying stages. We're looking for the War Machine from ECW. That's what we're trying to pull out of him. And it seems to be working so far, man. He just, there's a match coming up with Chris Sabin. And I mean, it is maybe one of his best in the last 10 years.
So one thing I can't figure out, how does AEW's Kenny Omega be the champion of TNA? It's the forbidden door, man. It's an interesting dichotomy right now, and it's cool as a person that considers himself a wrestling fan and a person that's in the business. This has never happened before, ever in the history of televised pro wrestling. An active champion from another company that airs on another channel that gets paid by another company appeared on the pay-per-view of another company. That's never happened in the history of wrestling. I watched it, and it happened, in the company that I worked for. And Kenny Omega, I think bell to bell right now is probably the best in-ring performer in the world. And it's a good thing for everybody, for him. It's a good thing for AEW. It's a good thing for Impact. It's hopefully that this partnership continues because there's so many different things that could go on. And I think they're being smart about it. They're kind of taking it one little step at a time and drawing it out and making it mean something. And I think that's important.
Because of that, man, I'm telling you right now, I ain't never seen nothing like this. And that's why we glue into Impact. We glue into AEW, we glue into New Japan and all these companies, because seeing that right now is what making us love wrestling and keep doing that. Telling you from the bottom of my heart, I love it.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, I love it too. It's cool to be part of it. It's history, and we're all living it together, which is super cool. I can only speak for Impact, but it's written by people that love wrestling, and it's written for pro wrestling fans because that's who watches the show. And it's a very good product. I think minute to minute, pound for pound, it's the best pro wrestling show on television right now. And
we only got you for a couple more minutes here. How do you see, or how do you want to be remembered?
I've never really concerned myself with that, to be honest. I think I will be remembered in a bunch of different ways. And I think pro wrestling is art. And I use the term art loosely, but it is, it's subjective. And, there's going to be people that don't like me. I get people wish cancer on me almost every day on social media. I don't know what I ever did to them, but that's the way the social media works. So I'm not losing any sleep over it. That's for sure. But it's art, and I think I only hope that people will look back and say that he was a pro, and someone that was able to take something and make it into something important. And no matter how big or small that was. And I think for me, my biggest skill is, maybe I'm not the best wrestler and I'm not the best talker but I'm very, very good at all of it. And I've proven that over my career. I've experienced the card from every angle. I've been the opening match. I've been the main event. I've been the heel. I've been the baby face. I've wrestled women before it was cool. I've won every belt imaginable in this company. I've won other belts all over the world. I've made a very good living doing it. And I've done it the right way. I've never stepped on anybody. I've never pushed anybody down. I'm not a political person. I don't have the bandwidth for that. I just show up. I do what's asked. I treat people how I want to be treated. And that's how I want to be remembered. And I think I will be.
Mike?
Yeah, I was just going to hit with one last one now. What actor would you want to play you in a Hollywood movie?
I think right now the only answer is Woody Harrelson. Right now. I mean, with the beard and stuff. I mean, that's I don't know. I don't have a beard anymore. I got too many gray hairs and shaved it off. Everyone's got a beard now. So I grew it in 2009. I think it was started growing in 2009, and it was definitely not normal then, and was one of the kind of first. And people want to say that Daniel Bryan, I copied him. You can go ahead and look at the tape. I had a full beard before he even started growing his. So if anything, it's the other way. And I assure you, he did not copy me. He probably didn't even know who I was. So he was busy just making all the money and wrestling all over the world for the WWE at the time. So, but yeah, it's right now, I would say Woody Harrelson. The guy with the beard, I don't know. I want to say Hugh Jackman, but I'm probably not in good enough shape.
I got one more. Bret Hart or Owen Hart? Which one would you want to pick?
I love them both, man. And it has nothing to do with being Canadian. I think Bret is probably the best storyteller. He just did all the little things that made you believe that he was who he thought he was. Owen was hilarious, completely different, a better athlete than Bret, I believe. Did more exciting stuff early in his career and then had bad knees later on, but was a guy that I loved. And I only met him kind of once in passing, and I wish that wasn't the truth. I wish he was still here. But yeah, I loved them both, man. It would be tough to say. I love them both for totally different reasons.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah. Eric, I just want to thank you very much for taking the time for us today and coming on. We've been big fans of you for a long time, and we still continue to be big fans, and just really appreciate you taking the time for us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I mean, obviously you guys are fans of wrestling and fans of the product, and that's cool to me. And I don't think I'll ever be used to it. I'm a short, chubby kid from rural Ontario, and the fact that people all over the world see this ugly face and they know who I am. It's weird, man. It's a weird thing. I never got into wrestling wanting to be famous. I never even got into wrestling wanting to make money. I got into wrestling because I loved it and it's what I wanted to do. And I've been making a living at it since 2004 and continue to. And I'm sitting here, one of the few people that can say like, this is what I've dreamt of most of my life, and I'm still doing it.
If you're looking for a mug, perhaps a hoodie, head on over to IOnlyTouchGreatness.com.
Looking for the most beers on tap, great steaks, great staff? Head over to the John B. Pub.
We got the best beers, steaks, chicken wings, nachos in town. Come see us at the John B. Pub.
The John B. Pub, the best bar in town. Come sign up for our football pool. Say Hey sent you.